Hello? Come on now. Wow, this really snuck up on me here, talking. Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris Ying. I'm a writer. Among other things, I've written a number of cookbooks, and I used to make a food magazine called Lucky Peach. Rest in peace. Before I was a food writer, I worked for a little independent publishing company called McSweeney's that was located here, located here in the Mission. I'm just ringing all the bells. We used to put out all kinds of weird experimental fiction and other forms of literary entertainment. So when La Cocina asked me to do a presentation under the theme of recipe, I said, sure, I'd love to do something as long as it can be annoyingly meta. So tonight, my performance is about recipes themselves, what they are, who makes them, why they never work, who's to blame. As with any recipe, a recipe for a recipe begins with ingredients. Tonight we're going to be cooking with knowledge, experience, identity, preferably a true one if you can find it, culture, other cultures, and secrets. If you live in some parts of the country, some of these ingredients might be a little harder to come by than others, but any good Latin or Asian market will have them, or just look online. Okay, step one. Oh my God. Combine knowledge and experience. Mix thoroughly and form into coherent instructions set aside while you prepare the identity. This is essentially what recipe writing is. You know how to do something because you've done it before, or your mom did it a lot, or you watched someone do it once, or like me, you used to work for an independent food magazine and your fellow editors said, hey, you should make a book about sausage making, and then you had to go and read a bunch of shit about sausage making. But it's definitely one of those things. A recipe is, at its core, a set of instructions for producing a desired result. Sometimes your audience might not even know what that result is. That's why you have pictures and head notes. Other times, they know exactly what it is because they've had it before, and maybe they're a fan of the way you cook, and they want to know how to do it. Sometimes it's more intimate than that. And you write a recipe for your family because they want to preserve your knowledge and experience so that they can spread that knowledge and create more experiences for themselves. Step two, shape the identity into a representation of yourself. If using true identity, leave the skins on and seeds in. If using a packaged identity, be sure to give it a thorough wash before proceeding. Recipes are a projection of who the recipe writer is, or at least who the recipe writer wants you to think he or she is. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, I was working on a recipe with a chef that called for salt cod. And I said to the chef, do you use store-bought pre-made salt cod, or do you make your own salt cod? And he said to me, what I do is I take pre-made salt cod, I put it in the food processor, I pulverize it, I blitz it until it's totally, just powder. Then I pack fresh cod in that salt cod and use the salt cod to cure the fresh cod. Which is fucking genius. It's so cool. It's so cool. And so I was like, okay, great, I'll write that recipe. I'll go talk to the cooks at your restaurant and find out all the proportions and ingredients and all of that kind of stuff. And it occurred to me pretty quickly that nobody at the restaurant had any idea what he was talking about. So I asked him and I said, hey, what are the proportions for this recipe? I can't seem to get your cooks to tell me the secrets. And he said, oh, I have no idea. I just thought it sounded cool. But before you judge this, chef, I would urge you all to think about a time that somebody's asked you for a recipe. And in the back of your head, you know that you bought some dried French onion soup mix and you put it in with some sour cream and you whipped it around and then you put it in a nice crystal bowl and then you had a party. But you didn't tell them that. In your head, you were like, oh, we slowly cook the onions and then I dry them in a dehydrator and then I culture my own cream and I made this beautiful dip for you. And I don't know, maybe you told your aunt the truth, or maybe you sent her to a link to a dehydrator on Amazon. Uh, so, next step. Step 3, add the culture to a pot and gently fold in other culture. Remember that cultures are alive. You'll need to handle them with care to keep them that way. Okay, this I think is where things get a little more interesting. Recipes are our best attempt at quantifying and transmitting culture. You share recipes with people who don't know how to do what you and your family do. You give them ingredients, amounts, and directions for producing something that you know how to make in your bones. There's a lot of talk in today's food world about cultural appropriation or misappropriation, and certainly there are people who will exploit recipes for financial gain without concern or respect for the source. One second. Just let that sink in. But on another level, I kind of think that recipes are an amazing assertion of our power. Oftentimes you've got people from traditionally disenfranchised or underrepresented groups telling a bunch of rich, white cookbook readers what to do in their kitchen. Wash your zucchini. Work the meat. Stir constantly. I know it's like not that simple, but when I'm writing a recipe, I definitely have that in the back of my head. Step 4, stir in the secrets. If you like things a little salty, add less secrets. For a little sweetness, use more secrets. A recipe can never be complete. That's just the nature of recipes. Equipment differs, ingredients differ, people's tolerance for following your instructions differ. When you say season to taste, everybody's taste is different. But we also all have a family member who very purposely will not share their actual recipe. They'll give you 92% of it, but conveniently one thing is always missing, and it's always the most important thing. And you can't blame them for that because, like I said, recipes contain our identities. It's natural to want to protect your identity. This is what makes writing recipes a huge challenge, but also what makes recipes powerful. This is so long. Step 5, the last step, serving your readers. Provide your readers with the instructions and tell them to help themselves to as much identity as they like. Be sure they get a taste of culture. If they want more secrets, sprinkle a few more on top. Last year, I put together a book called You and I Eat the Same. And for one of the essays, I asked this very brilliant cook named David Zilber to write about soy sauce. David is a Jewish black dude from Toronto who runs the fermentation program at a restaurant in Copenhagen. I did not ask him to write about soy sauce because I felt like he had some unique cultural connection to Japan or China or Korea. I asked him because he has a really interesting way of talking about recipes. Recipes, David says, are memes. The term meme was coined by an ethnologist named Richard Dawkins, who was comparing the spread of ideas to the way organisms evolve genetically. And if you think about it, memes, like genes, are a way of transmitting culture. They spread almost uncontrollably, evolving as they pass through various membranes and borders. And the reason why memes and recipes spread is because of their broad appeal, where food or the people who cook the food might be obstructed from passing through certain membranes. An idea cannot be contained. A recipe will pass via written and spoken word as fluidly and easily as dancing babies or crying Michael Jordan. This is the power of a recipe. It is an imperfect record, but it is a perfect vehicle for culture, history, knowledge, and deliciousness. Recipes are also a means by which culture is mixed, both figuratively and literally. You take what you know from one culture and combine it with another, just as you would with, food. Thank you.